Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to another book review from me, your host, Logan Albright. This week, I read the book Natural by Levinovitz, How Faith in Nature's Goodness Leads to Harmful Fads, Unjust Laws, and Flawed Science. Now, the reason I picked up this book is Levinovitz is a religious studies professor at James Madison University, and he's someone I follow on Twitter, and I think always has a lot of good takes and a lot of smart takes. Seems to be a thoughtful person. And I saw him posting about this book, and the appeal to nature fallacy is one of my most pet peeves in arguing with people, where people will insist that because something is natural it's good, or because something is unnatural it's bad. And that always annoys me because I don't really think the term natural is a very meaningful term. I don't know what people mean when they say it. I don't think it really has any use in the world, because people seem to mean that it's something that hasn't had human interference in it, but everything has had human interference in it. Like all fruits and vegetables that we eat have been genetically modified either through GMO technology or through just good old-fashioned selective breeding through farmers for thousands of years. They resemble nothing like what would have existed if humans had never existed. So there's no such thing as natural food. And on the other hand, if you believe that humans are part of nature, then everything we do is by definition natural. So I don't know what the term means. So that always annoys me, and I get into arguments with people about it. So I thought I'd read this book. Now, Levinovitz is not as I guess combative or argumentative as I am. He actually takes a very balanced view on this term. And doesn't say that all the people who endorse natural medicine or natural food or kooks or anything like that. He sees their side, and he's sympathetic to their side, and he thinks there is value in nature and there's value in revering nature. But what he's combating is this idea that anything natural is automatically good. And basically his thesis in the book, it comes from a religious studies perspective. And his thesis is that when people appeal to nature, what they're really doing is making a religious argument about basically what God wants. When you say something is unnatural, what you're really saying is God didn't mean it to be this way. And when you're saying something is natural, you're saying God meant it to be this way. Even if you don't realize that's what you're saying, that's sort of what you're saying. And he draws analogies between religious purity rituals, the purity laws in the Old Testament, to things like the 5-day juice cleanse and all the purity things that people go through now for their bodies that are really not backed up by science. But it's not really about science. It's about, a spiritual experience for a lot of people. And so that's sort of what he's talking about. And I appreciate his balanced view, and he tackles a lot of different angles. He talks about natural medicine and natural food, and he talks about the ways that both sides will appeal to nature to try to bolster their arguments. Like, to take a controversial example, he talks about people who are Christians who are opposed to homosexuality will often say that it's unnatural, and that the natural way is to have men and women together creating children, and that's God's plan, and that's what they believe in. Whereas people who defend homosexuality will say things like, well, it exists in nature. You see it in the animal kingdom. Therefore, it's natural. Therefore, it's good. And Levinovitz is saying that both of these are bad arguments, because just because something is natural, however you define natural, doesn't make it good, and it doesn't make it bad. So that's not a smart way to really argue these points. But there's something in the fact that both sides want to support their position by appealing to nature and by saying that their position is the natural position, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. And so he goes through examples of kind of bad laws and bad economic thinking and things like that to go through it. Now, my training is in economics, and I feel like he is a little bit on shaky ground when he gets into the economics chapter. I cringed a couple times in that chapter, which is fair enough. He's not an economist, and he doesn't have the training that I have, and I don't have the training that he has in religious studies. But I think that he does better when he sticks to the religious studies angle instead of venturing into economics, because one of my pet peeves is he accused Herbert Spencer, the 19th century economist, of being a social Darwinist, which is a common thing that Herbert Spencer is accused of, which I think is unfair. And maybe I'll make a video about Herbert Spencer, because I really like him and I'm a fan of his, and I don't think he's a social Darwinist. I think that's a mischaracterization of his position, and I've been wanting to do a video about him for a long time. So maybe I'll do that. If you're interested in seeing a Herbert Spencer video, let me know, and I'd like to do it. But apart from that little area where I had some slight disagreements with him because of my economics background, I thought this was an excellent book. And I really appreciated that it wasn't just out to lambast and debunk all the kind of natural medicine, natural food people. Instead, it's kind of taking a holistic look at why people think this way, why it's important to them, and some of the fallacies you can fall into when you think that way. Sort of the Rousseau versus Hobbes worldviews, and how neither worldview is completely correct and neither worldview is completely incorrect. I think that's very interesting. It's quite a short book. It's about 200 pages, lots of sources in the back. I really enjoyed it. So if this is the kind of thing that you're into and you're getting arguments like I do about people over what's natural and what's unnatural, you might just enjoy Alan Levinovitz's Natural: How Faith in Nature's Goodness Leads to Harmful Fads, Unjust Laws, and Flawed Science. And on the subject of nature, if you are a nature enjoyer and a nature appreciator like I am, you might want to read my book, which I've talked about once before, but I feel like I can plug it again if you forgive me. This is a book that I just released and self-published. It's a book of short stories called The Book of Seasons. It is now available on Amazon.com. It contains 40 short stories, 10 each dedicated to each season of the year. And there's sort of fairy tale feeling. Some of them have a horror feel to them. Some of them are spooky, especially the autumn ones that revolve around Halloween. They all have a little bit of magic in them for the most part. They're illustrated beautifully by my sister and father, who are very talented artists. And I also threw in a little poetry in there to boot, just so we have a little extra thing. So if you're into that kind of thing and you want to read short stories, especially kind of magical fairy tale type short stories, The Book of Seasons by me is available on Amazon.com right now. Link in the description below. And if not, that's okay too. And feel free to check back next week for another book review from me, your host, Logan Albright. And if you enjoyed the review, please like the videos, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, leave me comments down below, and come back next Wednesday to see what I read next. Thanks so much for watching. I've been your host, Logan Albright, and I'll catch you next time.